In a second-hand set of dimensions, on an astral plane that was never meant to fly, through wavering star mists, see the Grey Satuin. Drifting onwards through space, atop the shell of the world's turtle, are 4 giant elephants, upon whose broad shoulders rests the Discworld. Welcome to Dining Table Discworld. We're reading through the Discworld novels and discussing them at our dining table. Be aware there will be spoilers for the current book and others in the series. Hello. Just a few things before the episode properly begins. Firstly, we are approaching the halfway point of the Discworld novels, and with the current schedule, we'll release the Hogfather episode in September 2025. We'd love to have an episode after that with some listener contributions to celebrate being halfway through. So do let us know what you think about Discworld generally, this podcast, any specific novels from Colour of Magic to Hogfather. Also, let us know things you'd like to hear from us. Our email is diningtablediscworld@gmail.com. Our main social media is BlueSky, where we're at dtdiscworld.bsky.social, where I've recently been posting pictures from old Discworld calendars. We are on Facebook as Dining Table Discworld. It can be hard to tell when there's a real comment there because of how Facebook is, but we will keep an eye out. Secondly, Dave and I are going to World Fantasy Con in Brighton at the end of October. If you're also going and want to say hi, just let us know.
Hello, welcome to Dining Table Discworld. I'm Dave.
I'm Kathy.
And today we've hit the halfway mark. Well, I'm going to call it the halfway mark. I appreciate there is 41 books. But we're on book number 20, and it is The Hogfather, published in 1996. And he was also nominated for the British Fantasy Award for this year. So, Kathy, what's our synopsis?
Susan, granddaughter of Death, is trying to live a normal life, with a normal job as a governess. But on Hogswatch Eve, instead of the Hogfather bringing presents for the children, her grandfather comes down the chimney in the red outfit. It's all in rather poor taste. As Death covers for the Hogfather on his busiest night, Susan investigates, and the wizards find that strange little creatures keep appearing around the university. What does all this have to do with a group of freaked-out criminals taking orders from a terrifying assassin in a place where the sky is wrong? There's only one night to find the answers, and if the Hogfather doesn't return, well, you'd better watch out.
Excellent. So, what did you think?
Well, this is one that I've read various times. It's in the TV version, and I really like. It has been a few years since I read it. Also, we have been reading this in a very hot July, just because of the schedule for the episodes. So I feel like I should dedicate this book to all of our Southern Hemisphere listeners, if there are some. Hopefully there's at least a few. This book about winter in Northwest Europe. But yes, it feels a bit odd to read it when it's so warm. I think some of the winteriness doesn't feel as strong, but it's still a really good story. It's still got all the cool, interesting stuff in it. I noticed, because we've fairly recently I've seen Mark Burrows' Magic of Terry Pratchett show, and it was that 2 of the quotes he uses to illustrate Pratchett's range from the "this is a very silly, slightly dodgy pun" to "this is a profound, reflection and statement about humanity" are both from this book.
Yes.
So, I think even just taking bits of it works really well, plus all the kind of Christmas, winter, solstice stuff as well. Also, it's got a load of mythic stuff, which is obviously the kind of stuff I really enjoy. Yeah. And it's just really good fun.
Next.
How about you?
Well, I think this will come down to be the one I've read, this book I've read the most. Possibly that or Thief of Time, one of the two. But I quite often will read this around Christmas because it has that
seasonal.
Yes, seasonal feel. I know it's not literally Christmas, although we will get onto how it's
definitely winter.
Yes,
midwinter.
And it is. I think it's got some of the best bits of Pratchett in it. I mean, I love the Death books. Just the idea of Death sitting in as the giver of presents. It's just an interesting idea.
Yes. I mean, I did look up actually when things came out, because obviously I didn't read this till some years after it had come out. But, Nightmare Before Christmas did come out about 3 years before this book was published. Which is not to say obviously the seed and things weren't already there. But I think the whole idea of here's a creepy skeleton guy doing Christmas, but then it's otherwise got an entirely different feel and thing to it. And obviously it's very much, Discworld stuff, very much Pratchett's own thing, but I suppose at that point, the idea of a skeleton in a Father Christmas type outfit wasn't entirely unheard of.
No. Okay, so we have obviously high expectations for this one. So I think we've got four main structural sort of plot threads that run between, and they do link up. They do have crossovers, but I think we've got four areas to start with talking about, and that's death. That is Susan. That's the wizards, and that is the I'm gonna say
it's the criminals, assassins, and criminals.
I say protagonist, but it's not really in a protagonist role. But then,
Do you mean antagonist?
Antagonist, that's the one I'm looking for. Yes, they're not. They're kind of they are the cause of the problems, but anyway.
I'd say tea time's the main antagonist.
Yes. Anyway, the point is you've got and then you've got those.
The bad is, since we were using children's language,
it seems to be yes. So. Where did our notes say which ones we started with?
I wrote them in the order that you just said.
Okay, right then. Excellent. So we'll start. We'll start with death. Death as the Hogfather. Well, shall we just briefly touch on who the Hogfather is in Discworld?
That would make sense.
So obviously he is the Father Christmas Santa Claus analog on the disc. However, a lot more pagan. And a lot more pig-based, yes.
So it seemed, bearing in mind Pratchett was writing this at a time when we still, I think, largely in the UK said Father Christmas, but we also said Santa Claus, whereas now it's Santa, like our kid says Santa. Like you say Father Christmas, he knows who you mean, but he calls him Santa.
Yes.
That's the thing that's changed. I remember having a conversation about 10 years after this book was published, where people would, I remember being in a conversation pointed out, when you say Santa. I think I read a book where somebody described Santa Claus as eating Father Christmas.
Okay.
Well, I mean, they're all a bit. It's all a bit metaphorical.
Yes.
But yes, so you've got. But it's basically the winter solstice, midwinter. Do they call it solstice? I think it. Can't quite remember if it goes into how that works on the disc because it's a disc, not a sphere.
I don't. I think
it's basically the shortest day of the year. However that happens, because whatever it is that happens
does
in astronomy, we don't have to worry about.
Does it take a slightly different route
between
the legs?
We're not gonna go into cosmology on that. So it's the shortest night of the year.
So it'd be the longest night of the year.
So yes, the shortest day, longest night.
Yes.
Yes, the longest night. It's the time of darkness. It's midwinter, and obviously in most, certainly like Northern European countries, and obviously this is very much based on kind of British sort of Northern European stuff. You know, there's some sort of like, we're going to do a thing at winter because the sun's been getting less and less. We need to make sure there's more sun. Later, and we can get past this tricky time. We have enough stores to survive until we can start to grow things again. So Pratchett's kind of taking that thing and the thing of the Hogfather, because I mean, it doesn't explicitly say it, but like quite often you keep a pig because you can feed the pig on scraps.
Yeah.
But at some point, it's like you're hungry, you got to kill the pig, and then you can make a lot of food out of a pig.
Make a lot of food.
You can use most of a pig.
Pig is
as
excellent.
I understand it.
Yes, 90% of a pig is edible in some form.
Okay, I don't know how you have that stat, but fine.
My father was a butcher.
Oh yes, I forgot.
You can sit down and work it out.
So the Hogfather is this idea of you need something bright in the darkness. That's what Christmas is, that's what solstice is, that's what a lot of different festivals are. This touches on that. But I think the reason it being a pig thing, again, it doesn't explicitly say it, but my take is that the reason it's a pig thing is because, we've slaughtered the pig that we were keeping, so now we can feast on it. So it's
now we have a lot of pig
Now we have a lot of pig products. We have sausages, we have dripping, there's crackling,
ham.
Yes.
It's a giant pig's head.
I think brain soup gets mentioned at some point. They don't quite say brain. There was like an accent thing to it, but yes. So the point is, it's a point when it's like, let's have a festivity, but also it had this more cosmic significance of the Hogfather needs to be there for the sun to come up again. Yes. And this is the thing that Deaf says, because Def's impersonating the Hogfather. Well, he's not impersonating the Hogfather. That's a different thing. Yeah. He's covering for him.
Yes, he's very much trying to be the Hog, at least make people believe that the Hogfather is still around.
So right from the start, when Def's talking to Susan, you see he's talking about belief. He's going down chimneys, he's leaving sooty footprints. Albert, who's with him as his main elf, and who only has a very little life left on the disc, but is travelling in some sort of bubble of reality that accompanies the Hogfather, which is obviously slightly outside of time, which makes sense.
Yeah.
So he's the one who's actually drinking the brandy, or sherry, and eating
the pork pies.
Because, again, pork pie. Although how you have the pork pies before the Hogfather comes, but again, that's the more modern version of it. I mean, the UK, it's mince pies and... Is it brandy?
Sherry.
Is it still sherry?
It's very much, traditionally
We don't
sherry.
have sherry. We don't put sherry out.
No, but...
You just do whiskey. I guess that's because you're the one drinking it. The kids not listening to this.
Traditionally, it is sherry. Usually you use whatever spirits you have lying around.
Because I feel like in America, they don't... Like, I feel like Santa's more... Is it milk and cookies?
You get milk and cookies, I think, is more of a thing over there.
They also have cider that is an alcoholic there, so I guess it's a slightly different cultural thing.
But the point is, it's something you've left out for him as a gift.
And like a carrot for the reindeer, but in this it's a turnip. Because, of course, the Hogfather sleigh is pulled by 4 massive boars.
Of course.
Which Death has. He has the sleigh and the boars. Albert's helping him out. Oh, also, the Hogfather comes from a castle of bones that's in the mountains.
Yeah, I mean...
It's just make it a little bit more creepy.
I mean, to be honest, the Hogfather is pretty metal. Yeah.
Already, before he's even taken over by a skeleton.
Yes.
So Death's talking about belief, but he says to Susan, because Susan can see him, and she's a bit like, if you come to collect somebody, because this is in very poor taste, which I think gets mentioned like twice. And he's like, no, and he says, well, the Hogfather has, he's like, there's no good human word for it, so let's just say he's died.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if anyone should know, it's Death.
Yeah.
So Death's filling in, and he's travelling around, going to the houses, leaving the presents, the sooty footprints, he's saying ho, ho, ho. He's getting the hang of it more and more.
He's got a pillowcase, his pillow stuffed up his
outfit, because he's a bit skinny, whereas the Hogfather, like his round-world companion, is quite plump.
Yeah.
In these bits, Pratchett is very much looking at a lot of like traditional Christmassy things. I mean, the whole book kind of touches on it. But in this bit, and it's looking at how they've changed over time a bit, but also how stuff's become commercialised.
Yeah.
So the bit you like in the shop...
It's basically they're doing...
He decides to make a public appearance to get more...
He realistically realises that if he goes and shows himself as the Hogfather, then obviously more people will believe in him. Perfectly logical. So he goes to basically what is like the Harrods equivalent in Ankh-Morpork. It feels a little out of place for me in Ankh-Morpork as this kind of giant store.
I don't know, because I think the whole point is it's in a slightly fancier sort of place.
So.
And I mean, okay, big department store. Ankh-Morpork is a mixture of London, New York, and
I know, it's
Venice. I don't know that Venice has that, but the other two definitely.
Yeah, I know. It's just one of those. It's just kind of a little bit, but anyway. But the point is,
I quite like that it's in a place called the Mall, but it's spelled Maul.
Yes, but obviously it's a Harrods equivalent, and Harrods always had this big Christmas display.
Well, most big department stores.
Yes, but I think this is riffing off of the Death decides that he's going to crash. Quite literally, so this lovely decorated
grotto,
scene,
magical grotto,
was then overtaken by this kind of shoddy, really much more realistic sleigh.
No, it's not shoddy. The point is,
it's hard. It's hard. It's not decorated.
This is the point about being commercialised.
Yeah.
The sleigh they have is probably a lot like sleighs we see. The pigs that pull the sleigh are like cute little, like round pink piggies with curly tails, and they're very cute. And then what appears is this sleigh that looks like it's been hewn out of trees the other day.
Which it has.
It has weird faces carved on it, and there are 4 absolutely enormous, grey, bristly, hairy, snorting, stinking boars, and one of them then wheezes all over the carpet in front of a queue of children.
Which they love.
Which they love and keep mentioning.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, and it's just, and then he proceeds to do the entire... Father Christmas in a grotto.
Who else has a grotto?
Just,
No, I'm just saying grotto is very specific, isn't it?
Yes, I think in this case, yes. But then he doesn't, again, Death being Death, doesn't understand. All he knows, here's the Hogfather gives presents to children. Children come to him, tell him what presents they want, and they get them. He kind of doesn't quite understand that actually what happens is the parents then go and buy them from the store. What he's all about.
He's not really about commerce, is he?
No. And we just get these brilliant bits of, Death just using his ability, using the Hogfather's abilities.
The sack thing.
Yes. Where these children are sitting on his lap, talking about the boar doing a wee, and then saying what they want, and Death giving it to them.
And you have the classic thing where the kids are a bit nervous and shy and a bit scared to say anything, which, I mean, I've had. as well. And so then the parents just sort of like, oh,
Yes.
thank you, say thank you. Oh, she wants this, just sort of talking over the kid a bit. But then
Death goes, no, be quiet, and then asks the child, and the child gets a giant castle with with all
Spikes
the spikes
and all the
one,
things.
yes, and the one that gets the sword. It's just
you can't give her a sword.
can't give her a sword. You might hear stuff. It's educational.
And
then I think Albert eventually talks him round and then turns into a. But then there's the
turns
horse.
into a wooden sword, not a metal sword.
Yeah, then there's the horse that turns up in the kitchen. That's in the in like the third story of her house.
Well, yeah, so one child says want a pony, so we can't have a pony, so we're just going to get a toy. And then he's like, oh, the pony will be in the kitchen. She's like, haha, that's a joke. And Albert's like, you were joking. He's like, of course, it's in the bedroom. The kitchen would be unhygienic. But also you've got the fact that when he's a bit like giving them all the stuff, and I was like, well, we can't afford all that. He's like, well, I'm the Hogfather, so you don't pay for it. And she's like, I'm sorry, you don't. Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And then the guy who runs the department store, who it's already been discussed, he likes his time here, but he likes being the proprietor. Yeah. But he also very much likes the money and has a lot of stuff in place to make sure none of the employees are skimming anything.
Yes.
Gets all upset, and then he calls the watch. And then we have a great scene where Nobby Nobbs turns up. Nobby Nobbs, who perhaps unsurprisingly has had a lifetime of disappointing, or childhood of disappointing Hogswatches. Yes. And the main thing he remembers getting was when his father threw up in his stocking. Yeah. Thinks, right, goes in, and then has the exact same reaction as the small children.
but gets his
dream crossbow.
Yes.
Some sort of limited edition.
Yeah. Which is, I just love those bits just for bits. And there's
it's
numerous.
Also the fact that Death is there, not sure whether to describe Nobby as a human, a dwarf, a monkey, and then it goes with individual. Have you been a good individual? That's something he has to ask them if they've been good, and they'll say yes.
And it's just some fun bit of writing that and just this idea of Death trying to fit that role, and again not quite getting it.
Well, the point is
knowing the key points.
He gets it the way the children get it, not the way it actually works with the adults and stuff. But the children are the ones whose belief he's trying to inspire.
True. But no, it is fun.
So there's that bit, but then later they go to some other places, and he starts seeing some different things, including a bit like, why are we only giving this child like one, was an orange or something?
Yeah.
Or what would be the pig equivalent of an orange? I've no idea. Anyway, whereas all the other children got loads of stuff, and then Alfred has to sort of uneasily try and explain socio-economic differences to Death, who does not take it very well.
No, I think, and this is where we, through these bits, we get Pratchett kind of deconstructing Christmas and the kind of meanings around Christmas and some of the things, the stories we tell that aren't particularly great when you look at,
So, I mean, the fact that, all the children in the toy shop in this, city, I mean, even if one of them were on the third floor apartment, they're still able to go out and obviously buy something, go to the grotto. But, then you go to, a shack in a rural place, and it's just we're just leaving, one sausage. And he's like, well, why is this? And Albert's a bit and we hear about Albert's backstory, where Albert himself was came from very impoverished backgrounds, and then became the most powerful wizard on the disc. So that's quite a rise. Yeah. But he talks about seeing this fancy wooden horse in a shop window. We'll not question too much why there was a shop window 2,000 years ago.
There's the whole time scale on those.
It's the story about how Albert saw someone take it when he thought, maybe it'd be for me, and then it wasn't, and then he got frozen to the window because it was very cold. That's the other thing. All of this is very much, there is snow.
Does
it snow on Christmas Day here?
No. Jack Frost is out doing his job. Might get a slight adjustments to what he's doing.
He's told, why are you painting ferns and everything? He's like, I like ferns. And then later he's like, but you do sorts of different other stuff. And then later, just every so often mentions the window, it's like, there was a picture of some sad puppies or a kitten in a boot.
Because Jack Frost just tried something so different, but so we get lots of Death interacting with some of the, so we have the little match girl who traditionally in the Hans and Andersen tale dies in the snow because I
mean, that's treated like some sort of classic Christmas thing. I feel like I didn't hear about that at Christmas once.
Okay,
it's incredibly depressing.
I think I
read it in the book much later, but
I think possibly by the time it's fallen out.
I feel like what happened was that got replaced by Live Aid.
I mean, yes.
Which has its own issues. For let us face it, the line "Tonight, thank God it's them instead of you" is not entirely dissimilar to that sentiment.
Yes. But yeah, so
at least that was let's help people.
Yeah. So the idea,
it wasn't that effective.
The idea that it's poor match girl, but that she'll be taken up by the angels, and Death goes, nope, I'm not, the Hogfather. It's like, Hogfather, blip.
What I noticed in that bit was when, Death's like, we're going to see the little match girl next, and Albert knows what's coming. And Death gets life charm. He's like, wait a second. But what's funny is, he's like, you mean she? And Albert's like, yes, but they start tiptoeing around saying deaf or died. And it's like, he is deaf. But it's like, as the Hogfather, he doesn't want to talk about his other job.
But we'll get a bit of that in the when we get to the other realm.
Yeah. Well, again, I suppose it's idea that it's like a child's thing, and so Death doesn't come into it, except obviously it does for the match girl.
Yeah.
But then what happens is, I quite like the bit where it's a bit like Death, sort of saves the match girl. But then Albert hangs around, and when the angels turn up, he throws snowballs at them.
Yes, I know, it's great. Go away. And we get King Wenceslas, the man in the snow, and the king coming and gifting him all of these, all this feast. Death kind of pointing out, is like, you do it now, but it's like
so Death's really annoyed that the king's turned up with what are basically leavings from a feast that people have already chewed on to give this old man. He's like, well, where were you the other day? Where will you be next week?
Yes.
And also, there's this interesting thing where the old man is so poor, and he was just going to eat some beans.
Yes.
There's a whole thing about how beans are bad luck at Christmas, because of, I think, that thing where if you get a bean in your pudding, then you're like the king, but then that might also be a sacrificial thing. I only kind of vaguely know that one, but the point is, this old man was just, and he's so kind of embarrassed and shamed by this charity that's been brought to him, and he doesn't know what to do, and he just... It's this sort of idea of people not liking charity and being a bit proud. It made me think of the whole Cockbill Street thing a little bit
very much.
Feet of Clay.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, you see things like this, kind of the kind of humble poor, but still having, well, not humble, but kind of having an element of pride, not wanting charity. And I think it's a very literary thing. So part of me feels a bit like, I think it is a thing that exists, and people, especially when you say charity, people want stuff they need and they want support, but they don't necessarily want just people's leavings.
Yeah.
And that's quite often the problem with, like that's why food banks only take, new and packaged food, not people's old stuff, and you have to be a bit careful what you take to charity shops and things like this. And also my understanding is that certainly around Christmas, various places will be descended on by all these people going, here's a load of stuff, and then they just drop off all their tat.
Well, yes, it's making yourself feel better by basically going...
Yeah, and Death says you make yourself feel good now.
But, it's like, here, have my leavings, and yes, it's all food, but it's also exceptionally fancy food, which, again, it's not really what the person,
he was just going to eat
some beans.
Yeah. But then, interestingly, after making this point and scaring off the king, and then Albert having to deal with it that nobody comes and retaliates on this poor old man because the king's now been embarrassed, is that Death kind of does the same thing.
Yeah.
He does the exact thing, I mean, yes, Death will be there for the man later, but let's face it, later.
Yeah.
And it's like Albert sort of intervenes and sort of says, well, just give him this stuff. So he gives him, poor person food, but new poor person food rather than the leavings second-hand rich person food.
Yeah.
Not second-hand for food, because that's gross, but, partly eaten.
Yeah.
I sort of read that. I don't know if this is the first time I noticed. It's like, well, Death's just done the same thing as the king. It's just he's done it in a slightly more he's had somebody who's been from the background to be like, well, this is the kind of food that would be useful. I think that's when it's all the pig stuff. It's like, here is basically the equivalent of a whole pig of food.
Yes.
But that will, I guess, last longer.
Yes, significantly, and that was that. In that
so
situation,
it is more useful in that respect.
Yeah,
it's kind of like having shelf-stable food.
Yeah, because the fancy food that was given, it would go off so quickly. Whereas the prepared pig products, they're designed for
salted
storage.
Because again, that was the thing. That the point is that you'd slaughter the pig, you'd feast on some of the pig, but the pig would last.
Yeah. So I think we could go on and wait for it.
This episode is very suitable for vegetarians.
Yeah, sorry, vegetarians out there. Anyway, so there's lots of great bits in the death thing, and I think it's both humorous, but also it has that kind of making you think.
Oh, well, Pratchett's railing against stuff again.
Exactly.
This book could absolutely just be riffing, but it's not just riffing; it's also railing.
But I think
as we've come up with that.
That's the scope. But I think that works. Where it's just.
There's also the bit where you've got the canting crew in Ankh-Morpork, who are the lowest of the low, like two loaf the beggars guild type folks who are going to eat a meal of old boots, and then Death swoops in and switches their old boots with a load of food at a fancy restaurant, and then you've got all the people at the restaurant in the kitchen going, we've just got a load of old boots, and then they start making up dishes. It's like, take off the nails, take off the eyelets, we're gonna cook this, it used to be cow.
Yes. and that's
probably some sort of comment on fancy food, I guess, because there's a lot of making it sound French to fancy it up.
And then...
well, I think it's called pseudo-Quirmian. Restaurant Quirmian, that's it.
And then, you've got all these old people old people, rich people. I mean, they could be old as well, but rich people. The compliments to my chef. This steak was this. Just lapping up this. Well, it's effectively
because it's in the fancy
boots and mud. And I think the best bit has to be.
It's cafe de terre.
Yeah, the best bit has to be right towards the end of the book. After the canteen crew kind of eaten what the food they had, they come back around doing what they were going to do anyway, which is turn up and get given stuff to go away. They turn up to this fancy restaurant and get given some leftovers of old boot, and they kind of go around, it kind of tastes like old boot. Because they know. Yes. Anyway, we'll move on from death, because otherwise we'll be here for a while.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, so I think Susan next is, I guess, the other main plot. Yes. I think she's actually on the cover of this book.
Does she get on the cover?
Well, I assume she's the woman on the sleigh holding a scythe. She's wearing blue, so I don't know, but her hair's kind of white, and she wasn't on the cover of the book she initially appeared in.
No, it's not the easiest thing to see on this one. It's mainly because I've got sort of shrunk covers, so they're not the full. They're not as easy to see.
Yeah, it's just like a band on the cover, not the whole cover.
Anyway, so Susan, this is about 2 years after Soul Music, as far as we can tell, because she does talk about being normal for 2 years.
Yeah.
So we think
we don't know how long she was abnormal though. The thing I found was
abnormal. I realised I use normal as a.
Well, no, in fact, she's the one that says normal. Yeah. Like, she says normal all the time. It's just abnormal's the opposite. But
yes,
you sometimes get that.
Supernatural.
Okay. So she's taken this job as governess. It's also a little bit unusual in that she is actually a duchess.
Yes.
But there's literally no duchessing.
Well, she wants her own life, so she...
Yeah, but it's funny because there's this whole, again, going into kind of socioeconomic stuff. She's being hired by some people who seem to be upper middle class. And so the woman of the household who's hired her, the mother, gets a bit funny about the fact that Susan's a duchess because she's then actual upper class.
Yeah.
And the woman is shown as being this very kind of upper middle class thing where she's obviously trying to social climb, do everything properly, and there's that whole thing about how middle class people would be very concerned about what phrases you use and how you say things, and upper class people won't bother because they don't have to prove anything because they're already the nobility.
Yeah.
So she's a bit nervous about Susan being duchess, and there's this great bit where it says she's like, should have been napkins or serviettes. And Susan's thinking of like something that she knows whose response is just throw it on the floor and dogs will eat it. And there's a great bit where it describes her employer asking her how you should address the second cousin of the Queen. And Susan just goes, well, we usually just call him Jamie. And then her employer has to go down and have a nervous headache. So there's that. So it's a little bit of an odd situation, but Susan's much loved by the children. She seems to be very normal. And she's sort of ignoring the fact that she can... her hair rearranges itself.
Yes.
Which is an interesting power. She can walk through walls if she wishes. She can stop time if she wishes. She can also see the things that are actually there.
Yes.
And this is very useful for the governessing because previous governess, who Susan would like to track down someday,
yes,
came with a lot of things, like if you step on a crack in the pavement, then bears will come and eat you. Where is this stepping on a crack thing come from? I know it's a rhyme, but like, why is it bad?
I don't know.
Were paving stones really far apart at some point? You'd fall down somewhere? I don't. Anyway,
I don't know.
It's not even like Mind the Gap, which you can understand. And so what happens is there's all these bears that appear, but that only she can see.
Yeah.
Well, the children can see them, and so she has to like threaten them because, and also the bogeyman. And we do discover that bogeymen are an actual thing that exists in Ankh-Morpork and Discworld as a supernatural group of people. So what Susan has is we
already knew that from other ones.
Oh yeah, because it's in Reaper Man, isn't
Reaper Man,
it? But you just have one that hides behind doors.
And and turns up in beers. You get one.
Oh, that's when Susan goes to Beers, though. I don't think there's one in when Angua takes Cherry to Beers, which was when we first saw Beers.
Anyway, the point is that they've appeared before.
One of them decides Susan looks a bit too... Because this thing, Susan goes to Beers, which is the bar for the undead and like slightly odd people, which, again, featured in Feet of Clay. And then the bogeyman kind of starts to harass her because she says she looks too normal, which, again, is kind of gatekeeping a space, not cool there, guy. No. And then he also kind of grabs her a bit, and then suddenly he realises, oh, wait, I saw you before. And she's like, yeah.
Well, she uses the voice on him.
Yeah.
It's kind of a no-no in the bar as well, but, she's not supposed to use the voice on people.
The bar's supposed to be neutral territory. You're just supposed to, like, kind of, leave everything alone and peaceful.
But yes. So it's a kind of, even with Susan, we've got a little bit about how belief interacts with things. So obviously the children strongly believe that...
There's a monster under the bed.
Monster under the bed.
The bears.
I mean, to be fair, that's... quite often true, but the bears would appear if they step on cracks.
I think there's other things. There's other monsters. And so what Susan finds is she can't persuade them not to believe in the monsters. She can also see them. So she gets them to believe more strongly in the poker, and basically she'll just drag whatever it is to sell her and beat things up. And then the word gets out, and so those children aren't really bothered no more.
No.
It also is the first time that it mentions... Oh, no, is it mentions... No, I think it comes later in the Watch books. It mentions putting a blanket over a bogeyman and that being the way to defeat them.
No, it's been mentioned before.
Has it mentioned before? I couldn't remember if Angua had a blanket. I know it says that the barman at Spears has a blanket.
Yeah, it's mentioned before.
And it's basically the idea that if you... Oh, no, you're right, because Angua explains it's cheery, doesn't she? Because, yes, if the bogeyman goes away when you put your head under the blanket, then if you put the bogeyman under a blanket, it doesn't think it exists anymore and it has an existential crisis.
Yeah, which is kind of funny.
It's interesting because there is a blanket at the end.
Yes, true. I think the point is that she accidentally... The reason she had to do it was also she accidentally, one day when they said there was a monster on the bed, kind of went in and went, oh, forgot, and kind of pulled the monster out and hit it with a poker, and then it was like, oh, actually, this works better than, you know.
So, yeah.
You know, it's kind of one of those things where you try and pretend it doesn't exist, and then you actually just let your guard down and go, actually, it does exist. So Susan and the two kids, Gawain and Twyla, who affects a lisp to make herself look cute or sound cute.
Yeah.
So they're quite amusing. They don't turn up a lot, but they're in there.
They're in a little bit. I mean, Susan's thing is that then... So when she sees her grandfather, and she's quite annoyed... This is the thing that isn't explained, is that there's obviously some rift between Susan and Death. And the fact that Susan is so focused on being normal and having a normal life, and Death keeps mentioning her education. And so you sort of feel like she, despite the events of soul music, has done the same thing as her parents and been like, no, this is weird and this isn't how to be and I'm not having anything to do with this. So their relationship seems strained, which is kind of sad, but also I'm like, but what happened? Did the thing happen? Because she said 2 years of being normal, which in my head would make her about 18, 19, but it could be that it was longer, although longer in Death's Domain.
Yeah.
Was there something? I don't know. There's a gap.
It is this kind of thing that we kind of see, and not quite reset back to the original, like she was at the start of soul music, but certainly.
Well, she knows this done that. I think the thing is now she's burdened by these powers and the stuff that make her unusual.
Yeah.
And she sort of says something about not being able to, she says about, it's hard on dates when your hair keeps rearranging itself, it tends to put off young men and stuff. So it sort of suggests that she thinks this is the thing that's the problem in her life. And so she's turned her back on that. But again, also on being a duchess, so, she's I think she's trying to do her own thing. But then what happens is Death forbids her completely from getting involved in any of this, with the whole thing of the Hogfather's dead. No, she's not to be involved. Absolutely in no way. Nothing to do with her. She has her own life. Stay out of it. Because Death at least has understood something about human nature.
Yes, so immediately Susan starts investigating with the Raven and Death of Rats along for the ride.
Some of the time. I don't know, they seem to hop in and out doing their own thing with the Raven kind of going on about Robins and then cosplaying a Robin for a bit.
Yeah.
Because does she just go to the university?
Not initially, because she goes to the Castle of Bone first. So she
finds Billy.
She borrows Binky and heads to the,
because her grandfather's using the hogs.
Yeah. And so she finds the first of.
Well, the funny thing is, at first she's like, "Well, the Castle of Bones isn't real," and they're like, "What?" She's like, "Well, it's just a made-up thing." And like, what, like the Hogfather and the Tooth Fairy?
Like
she's
the Tooth
like,
Fairy. And Old Man Trouble.
Yeah. Old Man Trouble is just mentioned a few times, and it's unclear what he is, but it's clearly terrifying.
Yes.
It's about carrying a tune.
So yes, she runs into, well, not the first one to be created, is this new god, old god, corporeated? That's not a word. Corporealized? No, that's not a word I'm looking for either.
Corporated? Except that sounds a little bit more like a town.
Yes, but anyway, we're doing it. So
incarnated.
There we go, thank you very much. Incarnated god, the god of
hangovers.
Thanks.
Who is called Bilious.
Yes. So this poor chap has all the world's hangovers. He never gets the fun bit, he just gets the bit in the morning.
So, because there's ways you can read this as do him and Susan kind of developing a thing, but on the other hand, he does seem very pathetic and slightly annoying.
Yes. But
she does feel bad for him. So, yeah, she goes to the Castle Bones. There's not all this activity of toy making she's expecting. It's abandoned. It's falling apart. She's him. And then she takes him to the wizards. Because, it's funny. When they first turn up, she's like, oh, these are some of the most advanced minds on Disc. And he's like, really? And she's like, well, they get quite distracted. Because, of course, the wizards are getting ready for the Hogswatch feast, and also the faculty there being the faculty.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you want to go into Wizards now or talk a little bit more about Susan.
Well, just
stuff.
keep covering Susan. So, I mean, Susan basically does her Susan thing of investigating, going around, poking her nose into things, finding out about stuff that's happened.
It's probably worth mentioning the Tooth Fairy stuff. So the Tooth Fairies are, I mean, which were mentioned in Soul Music, are a franchise. Because actually, I think in Soul Music, people kept thinking she was a Tooth Fairy.
Yeah.
Because obviously, supernatural folk can see supernatural folk, but for Tooth Fairies, it seems to be a franchise in that you get the job, you get a ladder, you get the coins, you get the suppliers in case you can't make change. But it shows more of the operation. I think the idea is these are just regular girls that are doing it, but then once they do it, they're kind of in this kind of magical sort of space. Well, not magical, kind of supernatural, occult sort of space.
Yeah.
But you see more of it in this, which we will get to. But you sort of see there's the guy who runs the operation and deals with the money, who seems very officious. And then there's, the cart going. But what Susan and Bilious, who's just tagging along with her... Oh, well, no, the wizards come up with the ultimate hangover cure and he feels better for a while. And then tags along with Susan because... I guess
what else is he going to do?
Well, that hang out with the wizards, but they seem quite keen on drinking, which he's quite against, unsurprisingly.
Yeah.
And then they investigate because one of the girls' Tooth Fairies has gone missing. Yeah. Susan makes her way to the place where the sky is wrong. Don't know if we want to get back to that and just talk about the end bit. So various things happen in which Susan... Well, it's interesting. There's also about Susan's education. Susan herself thinks about how educated she is, which Def kind of says in a slightly pejorative sort of way.
Yeah.
And obviously it's her parents trying to make her normal, and now she does want to be normal, so I guess it kind of worked. But there's one bit where there's something about, like, if you need somebody to, figure out the square root of, is it 24.7? Keeps being mentioned. Is that number significant?
I don't know.
But she also says something about how to calculate the volume of a cone, which she mentioned quite early. And then she arrives at this very weird place, which we'll get to, and sees a cone of human teeth, specifically children's teeth.
But then she works out how many there are in it.
Because she can calculate the volume of a cone. Because they're in a heap.
Yeah. Which is quite nice.
Within a circle with a load of mystical stuff. So that's...
Yeah, never a good sign.
It's like... I mean, that whole thing is kind of like cute, but incredibly sinister.
Yeah.
And there's Susan's encounter with the kind of baddies, which I think we'll get to. But then at the end, it sort of seems like things are sorted, and Def comes through and says no, because the Hogfather still has to be saved.
Yes, it's still got enemies.
And this kind of goes into... We sort of see them at the beginning with the kind of like baddies plotline. But it's the Auditors of Reality again, last seen in Reaper Man.
It's always the Auditors of Reality.
Well, they were last seen in Reaper Man. It's not always them.
But it'll be them next time as well.
Well, I feel like they've taken over a bit from the Dungeon Dimensions thing.
Yes.
But their thing is, rather than being like a weird, squiggly, who knows what this is, kind of proto, not quite life, they're not life that hates life. Because, as Def describes it, they just want the universe to be rocks spinning in orderly circles.
Yes.
And humans are messy and weird. And that's why they're after Def, because Def's become very human over years of taking that shape.
Yeah.
And again, the stuff about shape will be very significant later. And that's why they got him wrongfully terminated from his job. And almost terminated in Reaper Man. But in this, they're going after the Hogfather. But it seems to be a bit of a test thing on them. Like, if we can get rid of one anthropomorphic personification, what can we do to humans? Like,
I think
wider, which
I think it's a belief thing again, isn't it? Well,
it's a belief thing, but it's kind of it's them using. They're trying to use a very strong aspect of humanity against itself.
Yeah. Well, because then if the Hogfather doesn't, the sun doesn't rise.
So Def has said the whole time, if the Hogfather is dead, isn't around, the sun does not rise. And Susan's like, wait, do you mean that? And he's like, yes, absolutely. So, okay. So then he takes us to this very mythic sort of place. Yes. It's this kind of winter place. And what you see is this, and again, it goes back through these very kind of like old pre-Christian, like kind of, I say pagan, it's such a broad word for so many different things, but, pagan sort of ideas. And you see this, but still the pig Discworld thing. Yeah. So you see this massive boar running through the snow, and it's being hunted by these dogs, but they're dog shapes. They're not real dogs. So the Auditor's initial plan of using humans for this has failed, so they're being more direct. And basically what happens is Susan ends up jumping off Binky and riding to safety because she's human.
She's human. She
Death
can intervene.
Can't get involved.
Yeah, she can intervene. She can help save the Hogfather.
So there's this whole dramatic chase through the snow.
Despite the fact that the Hogfather's all part of the Hogfather's shtick is death, which is where the whole killing a pig and is he dies.
It's not quite. We don't really get Easter mentioned. There's the soul cake duck, but that's there's this whole idea that she sort of stops the dogs from attacking the hog, which I guess would probably have actually killed him. But he does die, but then he kind of comes back. But again, it's that idea, although we have spring as a regenerative thing, I think the whole idea of the turning and the sun coming back, because this idea that he's solar related. And the point is, the big theme of this whole book is old gods doing new jobs, which we will get to in the other sections.
We'll get to in a moment-ish.
But yeah, so, and then what happens is Susan sort of sees this thing through time. So at first he's a hog, and then he's like a man in the snow, and he's all kind of a bit hairy, and he's covered in these like blue swirling tattoos. Yeah. And then he has these like furs on him. And I think some comment is made that, they say maybe his red suit was a recent invention, but no, it's a memory. So I think he's wearing like kind of red furs, whether they're from red animals, whether they're bloody, you know. And then he looks a bit more like a priest. He's kind of like white, and then he turns into this fat guy who has the sleigh. Yeah. Because at one point when he comes back, he chokes out the bean, because there's this whole idea that if you find the bean in the pudding, then you're the winter king or the king, but then that means you get killed. And there's kind of this idea that if you kill a king or a figurehead as a sacrifice to make the sun come up. So the whole idea is it's making the sun come back. It's midwinter, you need the sun to start coming back, and it's at lowest, shortest sort of time. So that's very kind of primal sort of stuff.
It is. It does.
But it's quite cool that that's kind of just in there.
And we do get, at this point, we do get the big death speech about belief, but we'll come to that at the end. I think with the so
might be a long one.
Yeah, this is going to be quite a long episode. I mean, so the next ones are going to be the wizards, and hopefully we can knock through the wizards relatively quickly.
Yes.
The main point of the wizards in this book is simply to bumble around doing wizardy things and interact with the plot very tangentially.
They're getting ready for their big Hogswatch feast that starts at midnight.
They interact with Susan a bit, because when Bilius goes, they interact with Death later a bit.
Rid Cully recognises who Susan is, because obviously they met before.
So we've got a couple...
Well, the whole thing with Bilius is he kind of becomes a bit of a project, because they're like, he's the god of hangovers. Well, what a hangover cures? They start coming up with all these different things. There's all this stuff that's mentioned as potential hangover cures.
It's it's an interesting, it's this fun little bit of extra stuff for them to... I
think the thing they realise is that when they say something...
Yes. So they're the ones, I suppose, they're the ones that work out that there is an excess of belief in the universe. So similar to what
But the reason they think that is all the stuff that appears first,
Yeah, so similar to Reaper Man, when we had the swear words coming to life.
And Rid Cully does reference that. He says, remember a few years ago there was all that life force sloshing around and you couldn't call your trousers their own because things kept coming alive and walking about.
Now we have Bilius, which are kind of towards the small gods, things that people
That's a different book.
Yeah, well, yes, but small gods with a small s and g. Things coming into existence that already have either a belief or a kind
potential.
of yes. So the Dean going a fairy that comes and gives me big bags of gold doesn't summon anything, because what happens is that they say they talk about the Veruca fairy. Or Veruca gnome, sorry. The idea of where do Verucas come from? And
I think he mentions the Tooth Fairy, and then they're like, it's always something like that, not Verucas. And in fact, the Veruca gnome actually appears a little before this conversation, because it's made clear for a few things at times a little bit iffy with this stuff. But it's the fact that when people see the Veruca gnome, so he is a gnome, but he's also a fairy, and that fairy is like a job, because all the Tooth Fairies are humans that we see initially. And the idea is like kind of like Tooth Fairy, kinda in the same business, but like rather more bringing than taking away.
Yeah. So and every time this happens, there's this like jingle sound, kind of like a sleigh bell perhaps, and you get this entity appearing sometimes around where the people have talked about it. But otherwise, so Bilius appeared for some reason in the...
Well, not for some reason. It's because one of the wizards speculates about, if there's a god of wine, isn't it funny that there isn't a god of hangovers? Yes. But then he appears in the Castle of Bones.
So it was more the case, I don't know why they appeared in the Castle of Bones.
Because he went where there was the vacuum.
Yes, but all the others don't.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good theoretical, but
no, I know. But I think that's just the thing that means they realise it's related to the Hogfather. Yes, because at one point in this, they're like, the Hogfather, and it's like, it's his big night, and that's when they go. That's when Rid Cully and Ponder Stibbons go to find the only member of the university who actually puts things out for Hogfather, which is the librarian, and then they see that it's Death, and that's how Death meets Hex.
Yes. Yes, so these entities coming. So we have the Veruca gnome. There is the Eater of Socks.
Because you always find you missing socks.
Yeah, there is.
There's the Pencil Eater.
Yes,
Because earlier it was mentioned that Rid Cully won't let anyone have a new pencil unless they bring the stuff of an old pencil. It's like, no one ever sees a really tiny pencil. No. They're all obviously being eaten.
And there is, of course, the happiness fairy.
The cheerful fairy.
Cheerful fairy.
That seems to me more like the bears and some of the nightmares later, in that somebody's parent or nanny or somebody said, if you're not good, the cheerful fairy will come.
Yes, so it's belief in a something.
But then, as you say, the dean says, what about the give the dean the big bag of money fairy?
And it's like,
do you regularly get given big bags of money, Dean?
So, yeah.
It has to fill a... Yeah. So, again, going back to the old gods doing new jobs, they look up and it's something like, I think it's layers and penance, but it's basically... Penates? But it's basically this idea of household gods, little things that go around the house that you'd have, so not like a god with a temple that you worship, but just something you might have a little shrine to. And again, but in a very British thing, people putting out milk for the fairies.
Yeah.
So that they help you. They're kind of like a hobgoblin house fairy, like the kind of sprites that might be bad but might be helpful. That kind of belief. So it's taking that kind of belief, and with the Hogfather gone, there's a lot of belief sloshing about, so it's kind of creating places the belief can manifest, and these things are incarnating. Because like the Veruca gnome says, he's always been the Veruca gnome, but he's only existed for a few hours.
Yes.
Same with Bilious.
Bilious goes where you can kind of knows he existed before, but now he's got...
But all the things he can remember are hangover things.
Yes.
So he's not... It's weird, he has these weird logic gaps and knowledge gaps.
So yes, we have. So they find out about those entities, which are kind of nice. It's a fun little idea about...
Yeah.
Yeah, it is very similar to the life energy giving things, but we do get these are more characters, and they're fun. There is also a jingle fairy for when it happens.
Yes, because there's this thing that sort of writes glingle, glingle, glingle. Yeah. And after a while, Ridco starts to hear it, and then it turns out it was living in his hat.
Yeah. So that's kind of amusing. And yes, so as we said, they do their own bit of investigating, and we get
a bumbling nonsense sort of way.
Yes, and I'm working to the more important bit, which is of course Death meeting Hex, or just Hex in general.
This has developed.
Hex has evolved. I think there's more to Hex now. Hex is now definitely an entity in its own right, I think it's fair to say. We get many more bad computer jokes in there.
Like the hourglass that comes down and spins round to show you it's doing something.
Yeah.
Or there are lots of like small religious pictures. Maybe icons?
Yeah.
The fish tank was there before, wasn't it?
Yes.
But are the bees...
No, the bees were already there. There's long-term storage.
Oh, there's a mouse now.
There is a mouse now.
And sometimes there's an out of cheese error. Like if it's like out of cheese error. It's like because the mouse doesn't work. And also you can now talk to it because they gave it a hearing, like Windle Poon's old hearing trumpet.
Yes.
So you can talk to it, so it actually has like speech recognition rather than putting in cards, and then it kind of writes on like a scroll of paper and...
Yeah, and it's just quite a fun interaction between Death and Hex, who Death instructs to believe in the Hogfather.
Ridco talks to Hex first, and that's kind of how they partly figure out what's happening. Although Ponder's a bit like, sometimes it does this, so it doesn't. And Ridco's like, no, it's being nonsense. So he starts talking to it like it's a bit mad, like the Bursa.
Yeah.
And I think he actually writes dried frog pills in.
That's because
the Bursa talks to it.
But they've been trying to get Hex to translate the Bursa. So the Bursa was talking to... I don't like this bit.
Well, we've had our issues with the depiction of the Bursa before.
Yeah, and the idea that Hex catches whatever the Bursa's got, and so Hex ends up answering in the same way as the Bursa does, and Ridcully resolves this by basically typing in a large amount of dried frog pearls. I don't like that interaction. I think it's the whole stuff with the Bursa we've already
But the point is that Ridcully discovers he just threatens it. Because what happens is normally if it doesn't want to answer, it just goes out of cheese error, and then Ridcully's like, "Don't be nonsense, or I'll unplug something." Because there's also the ram skulls, isn't there? Yes, and there's also a bit where Ponder thinks of Hex like a cargo cult. Like he kind of realizes we're building something that exists somewhere, and we're just trying to replicate it, which obviously. Yeah. Ridcully speaks to Hex to get part of the information, and then Death talks to Hex, and then Death instructs Hex to believe in the Hogfather. Yes. And then Hex starts writing, "Dear Hogfather, what I'd like for Hogswatch." Yeah. And Death's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Well, this is my right." He's like, it's going to believe in the Hogfather. It gets to write a list.
Yeah. And then, so it gets a list of many of the things on there that Death has no idea what they're about. Because I think it's the idea is it's asking for those things that, because they talk about earlier about trying to make electricity effectively.
Yes.
Because obviously that doesn't really exist. So, but in the
time
end,
to be powered by water wheel.
Yeah. In the end of the day, it gets its FTB. an important part of the machine.
Well, I think at the end, Panda's like, how will I explain to the Arts Chancellor that it stops working when we take away this fluffy teddy bear? And then Adrian's a bit like, just say it needs the FTB enabled. There is a quite a good quote around one of the hex bits where it says, real stupidity beats artificial intelligence every time. Sadly, we're now at a point where those two things seem to be feeding off each other and, like...
Ooh, yeah.
But let's not talk about the grimness of the present.
No, I love hex as the idea of an artificial intelligence kind of growing and becoming as this,
in fiction.
Which is nothing like the ones we get pushed with at the moment, and
causing a lot of issues.
Yeah, we won't go into that.
Yeah. It's quite a fun quote. It's just that current events have made a fun quote a bit like, oh god.
Yeah.
But anyway,
the wizards. I think this is fair to say the wizards are definitely in the book.
Yeah,
they're not obnoxious in the book. You've got a fun bit with Ridcully finding a bathroom boarded up
by a previous Arts Chancellor,
an ensuite for his chambers.
Office, yeah,
but you find out that it was made by
bloody stupid Johnson.
So obviously,
not a former Prime Minister of the UK.
Hilarity ensues there with that.
It turns out it's plumbed to the organ.
Yeah,
and then the librarian does an organ recital, and then he locks it all up again. But Modo the dwarf, who had to unblock it, doesn't hammer the nails all the way in
because he knows full well.
Because he knows full well they have to open it again. And there's again another quite funny quote is when they're first checking out all the plumbing in the bathroom.
Oh no, it's a different quote for what I was going. You do this one.
Yeah. So yes, when he's getting Modo to figure out the plumbing in the bathroom, he's like, "All systems go, Mr. Modo."
But I like before then is a quote about. Basically, the idea that if there was in the deepest, darkest cave, there is a button, and above it that says "Do not touch" or "Do not press on it."
End of the world.
This will cause the end of the world. The idea that some stupid human would have pressed it before the paint's dried, as this idea of this door that's got a sign saying "Do not open under no circumstances," and Ridcully's going. But I want to know what's behind it.
I mean, that feels a little bit relevant now. And also, if you look at all that thing about, they're like, how do we explain to people in the far-flung future not to tamper with all the nuclear waste we've buried in big holes?
Yeah, that's an interesting conversation as well as a kind of depressing one as well. But anyway, let's move on.
Yes. So I think the last kind of general plot bit we were going to talk about was kind of the baddies.
Yes.
So this kind of goes right through the book because it starts with weird cloaked figures going to Lord Downey of the Assassin's Guild and hiring him or engaging an assassin to take out the Hogfather. And then we get introduced to Mr. Time.
Yes.
Mr.
Tea Time.
Who is very much a villain and just... I think proper psycho is the term. I suppose a bit derogatory.
In a book,
but he does
in a book about children, he's kind of is the monster.
Well, and that's the point later, isn't it?
Yes, it is later.
He apparently has already considered how one might kill the Hogfather, someone who Lord Down is like, surely is imaginary. But he's like, okay, and he's just doing it to do it.
Yeah.
And so what he does is he hires this group of hardened criminals. These are people who rob and steal and murder, but they're not assassins because they're not fancying in a school, and they're not part of the Thieves Guild because they don't pay rates. They're just like this group of criminals. There's various of them. They're all very hard men. The key ones we need to remember is there's Medium Dave.
Yes.
They're being like Big Dave, Little Dave, lots of Daves.
Yes.
You have a very common name. And his brother Banjo. Now, Banjo is clearly an adult with severe developmental delay, so he's kind of depicted as like a child in an adult's body, but... Yeah. These are all obviously people that had quite hard lives.
Yes.
And they're now hard people. Banjo is this massive, huge, like, I think it's a mountain or a slab of a man. Yeah. He's this big guy, but it's this kind of idea that the big guy's stupid, which is not the best stereotype. But I think the idea with Banjo is that he specifically has some sort of developmental delay and probably has not actually mentally developed much beyond that of a child.
No.
But the point is, he's good for enforcement. If his brother tells him to punch someone, they're out like a light.
Yeah.
Tea Time also hires one of the best locksmiths, and also a...
disgraced wizard.
I think he's a student wizard with a lot of gambling debts.
Oh, yes, yeah.
But basically use magical stuff. Then they kidnap a girl, steal a cart. Well, they don't steal a cart. They get the carter to drive them somewhere, and then as soon as the carter explains that where they're going, he doesn't actually do anything magic to do that, Tea Time just kills them in cold blood, and they go. And then the rest of it is you get these men, these hard men, being really freaked out by this place where they are, where everything's a bit wrong. So they're in this weird building. It's smaller on the outside. It's massive inside. There are these winding staircases. It's very Escher-like. Sometimes you have to step kind of down to go up. It sort of reminds me of that bit in Labyrinth.
Yeah, it's all made of this pale, pearly,
gleaming white.
Material.
And what they've done basically is they've broken into all the bits. Is all the guards and the people who work there have basically been, say killed. What happens is when somebody has some sort of injury or something happens, they die. They don't actually die. They just completely disappear and fade out. And we later discover they land somewhere in the disc.
Yeah.
What they've done is there's all these teeth in box of teeth, and they've made this horrifying pile of, what did she say? It was like 20...
It was a ridiculous number.
It was 20,000, 20 million or something?
It's a ridiculous number.
It was basically this big pile of teeth, and then the wizard's done this spell, but everyone's freaking out because it's weird, and the sky hurts their eyes, and basically...
The sky's wrong.
The sky's wrong. Yeah, but looking... Yeah. So what happens is... And then Susan follows them there, bilious, and what she realises, because we get all these hints about how it's wrong, and they also all start acting a bit childlike, like jeering at each other, and then they all start talking about childhood fears, and they're all absolutely terrified of tea time, apart from Banjo, who for some reason really likes him, but it turns out that they use Banjo's tooth to get in there, because this is where the tooth fairy is... This is where the teeth go. All the children's teeth are just stored there. And what Tea Time has done is he's got all the children's teeth and used some very old sympathetic magic to use their teeth to control them. And it's something, again, Rid Kelly mentions really early with the bathroom. Yeah. And, how you have to, put your nail clippings in a pot so that no one could... It's kind of like that whole idea of, if you get a piece of something, you can control them. Yeah. It's a little bit like what... Well... It's like what people think voodoo is, although it's actually based on European witchcraft. There might be something like that in voodoo, I don't know. I know European witchcraft better, but that idea that if you get a piece of something...
there's a lot of common things in this.
Yeah, but the idea of sympathetic magic, and basically what's happened is that all those teeth have been used to make the children stop believing in the Hogfather, and that's why he's... The best human word is died. And you think having done that, Tea Time go, but because they found something at the top, there's all these locks and stuff, so Tea Time's insisting that they break the locks, that they get through it, so they're all just kind of stuck there. So that's kind of creepy enough, and everyone's freaking out, because Tea Time's horrifying.
Well, he's an assassin that kills.
Yes, he's not doing it for the money. He might be slightly doing it for the fame. He's just doing it to see if he can do it.
Yeah.
And, there's a thing early on where it said that, the Assassin's Guild took pity on Tea Time because he lost his parents as a young child, and then it says later they wondered if they should have questioned that a little more.
Yes.
Because he'll just use violence and killing just indiscriminately, just casually. Yes. Even these people who are murderers... But they're always doing it for something. It's always,
there's a reason.
It's to solve a problem. It's part of a plan. It's something that needs to happen. So they're all freaking out. And then when Susan arrives, she sees it and she's like, I know this place. And it's a child's drawing. If you get a child to draw a house, this is what you'll get. It's a big square. It's got 4 windows. It's got a door. It's got a chimney with a little curl of smoke coming out. Even though the kids that Susan knows that draw a house like that live in a mansion.
Yeah.
Susan drew houses like that. She lived in a palace.
Yes.
They all draw that. The grass is green, just green, like one shade of poster paint green. Yeah. There is a stream, which is one shade of poster paint blue. There are orange fishes swimming above it. And the sky is one blue line at the top. And then what's between the grass and the sky is just nothing.
Yeah. It is kind of very creepy.
It's taking this... this is what Pratchett does. This kind of the mythical and the mundane. And this is taking something so mundane, a kid's picture of a house, a kid's painting of a house, and saying, what if you were inside that? And it's like, oh, now it's creepy.
Yeah. Because it's got an apple tree as well.
Which has bright red apples.
Yeah.
And that's all anyone can eat.
Yeah, it's just... Yeah, this idea...
It's kind of amazing and weird. Also, and then when you go inside, it's this massive pearly white...
Tower,
Tower, yes, it's really tall.
I think again, we're on belief again, because that, is either, children feeding into belief of that is what, houses and things, most likely helped it manifest like that.
Well, yeah, it's obviously a child's place, and that's the whole reason when somebody is fatally wounded, something fatal happens, they disappear because there's no death there. And the reason Susan discovers that is because all her powers, the one she didn't like because she wasn't normal, they're all gone. She's normal now. But she's also been captured by a load of thugs and faced with this terrifying assassin guy. Yeah, it's like, oh, she's completely normal. She's like, oh, damn
it. kind of wishing she could walk through walls.
Well, she can't walk through walls, she can't deflect, she can't become invisible, or functionally invisible. And so, that's already quite creepy as it is. Again, it's that kind of horror movie thing. It's like, we've taken something cute and childish and now it's creepy. But then it gets more creepy because a lot of these, tough, hardened criminals start talking about the things that scared them as a kid. One of them used to suck his thumb, and he told about the scissor man who would come and chop the thumbs off of children that suck the thumbs. And then he starts hearing this sort of snipping sound.
Yeah.
And then one of them, there was a wardrobe that freaked him out. It was just a wardrobe, but it had a little bit of like fancy wood around the handle, and it looked like a face. And he thought in the night he could hear the face whispering to him, which is a thing called pareidolia, which humans do a lot, where you see faces and things. Yes. There's tons and tons of it. It's very interesting, but but it can also be scary, particularly if you're a kid. And then he starts hearing a creak, and it's not just any creak, it's the creak of that wardrobe. Another guy, his dad used to lock him in the cellar for ages. Again, these are people that are from not great backgrounds. And what happens is these pearly white walls suddenly seem to have all these shadows come along them, and the shadows sort of appear, and then the men all disappear when the thing that scares them, their childhood fears come after them. And the thing that scares Medium Dave and Banjo is their mother, Ma Lillywhite, who is clearly some sort of terrifying crime boss woman.
Yes, absolutely. I think kind of basing it off some of the London gangster boss kind of...
But where it's a terrifying woman who's in charge of everything. Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah. Banjo, whenever he's told to do stuff, like he does whatever Tea Time tells him. For some reason, Tea Time's got a hold on him and he follows around like a puppy dog, and which means that Medium Dave's losing his influence with his brother. Well, you say that, but he's still his brother. I think he still can, because the whole point is what scares him is this massive version of Marlou that comes. You've been looking after Banjo, our Davy.
Yeah.
You know, but the one thing Tea Time can't get Banjo to do, because he tries to get Banjo to basically deal with Susan, and Banjo's like, no, don't hit girls, don't pull their hair.
Yeah.
You know, don't...
Because obviously that's been drilled into him.
Basically, his mother, like... I mean, it's very clear that all these people had abusive childhoods. It's very clear that Dave and Banjo were, beaten by their mother, which I guess was a thing that was more common when this book was written, and certainly much more common when Pratchett was a boy.
Yeah.
So this idea of the fear, and yet every time someone... Basically, they all get scared to death.
Yeah.
But they don't die there. They go back to the disc to die.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Susan appears, and because Banjo won't go against...
Won't hit a girl.
Won't hit a girl because his mum told him not to. He's like, Mam said. So that kind of saves Susan. Susan manages to get Tea Time off kilter because she's like, I know what you're like. You're that weird kid that all the other kids are afraid of. Because he's quite small. He's not like a bully. He's not like big. He's not like trying to prove anything. He's just a bit... You're the kid that like hurt the puppies and drowned the kittens.
Yeah.
And so he's clearly, the adult version of that horrible child. And then it looks like she's defeated him.
Yes.
We'll come back to that. But at least he's fallen, then he's disappeared. And then... But then the door, because there was these 7 locks on it, and the wizard was trying to do it, and the locksmith was trying to do it, because there's clearly magical stuff, and it's taking ages, and everyone's a bit like, why can't we go? We've got the stuff. Because the other thing that the Tooth Fairy had was loads of deeds that were worth quite a lot of money. To loads of properties. There's a lot of investment.
Huge amount of money.
That's where the tooth money comes from. But they get to the end, and in a room, Susan finds something in a bed, and it keeps trying to scare her, like, is she afraid of spiders? No. It tries to be something creepy, no. And then she discovers it's this really old bogeyman. Although I'm not sure which gender, because it at one point it tried to be like a grandmother, and she's like, no.
I have this sneaky suspicion that...
It felt more femme to me.
I think bogeyman might be gender neutral. But
as a term. But,
I know bogeyman, but I don't...
Well, they all seem masculine, but this one seems more femme. Basically, it's the idea that this is the Tooth Fairy, but also, as it explains its background, the bogeyman. That when there was first humans living in caves, scared of the dark, that was where this bogeyman came from. And then others came later, but it was always the main one. And then it said that over time, men came out of the caves, they had fire, the night was different, and the bogies got kind of like, they went under beds and stuff, and they just jump scare people. It wasn't proper fear, which was what this bogeyman door has done. And then over time, the bogeyman, again, old gods doing new jobs. So again, this, much like the Hogfather, it's like Dawn of Time type stuff. Same as, children have always lost their teeth. This bogeyman had watched the children, who I guess were the easiest ones to scare for a while, and grown to like them, and then it wanted to protect them because it knew that they could be influenced with the teeth. Because the whole thing at one point very early on is that Death says, well, the belief's fading, and it's also happening backwards in time. Because although they'd just done that, I think, a few days before Hogswatch, the point is it made it so that these kids had always not really believed in the Hogfather. Because one of Death's problems is a lot of kids writing, I want these presents, I bet you're just my dad. That's the whole point, is there's a general lack of belief. But it's kind of happens, outside of time. So it collected the teeth just to protect the children, so this wouldn't happen to them, so they wouldn't be controlled, to keep them free, to keep them children. And so it has this place that built up around it of innocence, and it has these people that work for it, and they don't even know what they're working for. There's just this organisation of tooth fairies. Like, it's a franchise, there's the money men, there's the coaches that bring the food.
Yeah.
It's this whole organisation, and it's just this one creature that went from, I'm going to scare you, I'm scary, to, oh, actually, I'm going to protect you. It went from being the thing that goes bump in the night to the thing that's protecting the children.
Yeah.
Again, old gods do new jobs, and that feels like the biggest change of all. And it's just, but the thing is, it's very old, and it dies. So that's quite sad. I think, but it's also in a bed with a blanket. But I'm not sure if that's because it was being grandmother before.
I think it's grandmother.
But it's still under the blanket.
Yeah, I know.
Which I just, because all the other bogeymen can't handle blankets,
No.
and there's this whole thing that goes through the book in that it's always nice to hear the sound of children playing as long as you're not close enough to hear what they're saying.
Yeah.
Susan thinks that as a governess. I think it comes up another point. But in this, there's kind of all this background noise of children because you can kind of get echoes of them from the teeth.
Yeah.
And then what happens is Banjo, who's the only one who wasn't scared by his childhood fear, because I guess his childhood fear was probably his mother, which scared Medium Dave, but he's still kind of like a child. So Susan ends up putting him in charge and be like, well, somebody will bring food and take care of you. And Bilious and the two fairy girls that they'd rescued, who the bad guys had kind of like locked up. Well, Tea-Time told them to kill her, but they'd been like, we'll just shove her in a room.
Well, again, they're not that hard of criminals to kill. A tooth fairy, an unarmed girl who they'd kidnapped for.
Yeah. So she was just there to show them the way in. They say they'll stay and help, and she's like, but you mustn't override him. You mustn't take advantage of him. There's also some sort of slight romance between them, which fine. But so Susan feels like she's done that, and then there's the whole thing where Death, as we mentioned, where Death has to get her to go and save the Hogfather in some sort of mythic winterscape. And then it's Hogswatch morning. The children are making noise. Death visits Susan.
Gives her a Christmas card. Oh, sorry, Hogwarts card.
A Hogswatch card, so that's, that's like... It turns out, so Tea-Time, as he was dying because he fell from this parapet and then faded, but he happened to fall in the university. The wizards found him and resuscitated him. Because I guess they're just being very helpful at the moment. But, well, the whole Billers thing was helpful as well. And, well, he lands in their feast. So.
Yes, which annoys them slightly, as you can imagine.
Because Tea-Time knew who Susan was. He's done a lot of research into all sorts of, because he's actually considered how to kill a lot of mythical creatures. And he knows that she's Susan Stow-Helit. He knows she's Duchess and also the granddaughter of Death. And so he knows where she lives for some reason as well, or where she works. Creepy. That's his whole thing. Yeah. So there's this bit where that's it, because Susan had Death's sword with her but it doesn't work in the Tooth Fairy lands, because that's Child's Place, no death magic works there. But then he had it when he fell, so he has it on the disc, and realises he can slice things. So he turns up there, I think to get revenge or something, I guess, probably. Yeah. I think Susan was one of the few people that kind of got to him. Everyone else is scared of him, and she just wasn't. And Death's there, and he's a bit like, oh, if I kill Death, maybe that's a civic, like he thinks, oh, big, I'll kill Death, and he's interested in killing things, and And then the children come in, and Susan's like, oh, no. But then Tea-Time kind of tries to appeal to children, like, oh, look at the scary, horrible skeleton. And the kids, who have seen Susan be at Nearest Monsters, goes, it's just a load of old bones.
Show him the poker.
It's eating a biscuit.
Yeah.
Because Death had just been looking at a tin of Hogswatch biscuits.
Yeah.
And then Susan is going to do something, and she thinks Death's about to do something, and she sees him kind of wink, or his version of winking. And then what happens is he doesn't seem to be doing anything, and Tea-Time's approaching with, the sword of Death that can cut the air. And Susan ends up throwing the poker. Tea-Time dodges behind Death, but then the poker goes through Death and hits Tea-Time fully in the chest, killing him. And the children goes, oh, the poker only kills monsters. And it's like, this guy was the monster.
Yes.
But it's alright, because the poker kills the monsters in the end.
Yes, all.
So it's a bit grim, because Susan kind of did a murder, but he was probably going to turn on her, very possibly the kids, anyone else nearby.
That's the civic duty, I think, is not having Mr. Tea-Time around anymore.
Yeah. Also, there's the fact that, because he actually says what goes through him, it's like, but how can it go through? There's all these ribs and things. But Death just, I think, became incorporeal at that moment. And he also made it a bit showy. He, made sparks appear and stuff. He added some effects. Yeah. And then afterwards, Susan's like, I thought you were going to do something. And he's like, yes, I was waiting to see what you would do. Oh, no, he says, I expected we would have thought of something last minute. And she says, that was the last minute. He's like, there's always time for another last minute. And it's like, well, if anyone knows, it's this guy. So it feels like Susan and Death have a little bit of a kind of, they're a bit warmer now. They're living because, they've had this bit of an adventure together. Because I suppose in soul music it was very separate.
Yeah, it was.
But they've had this thing together, and
Yeah, so we've got a lot. It's a lot going on, and obviously we enjoy this book, so we've been going on for a while. So I think there's a few final things to touch on.
I mean, a big part of it is the mythic and the mundane, but we've kind of gone for a lot of that. All this old gods, dawn of time stuff, but also like here's people selling stuff in the shop. Here's Death trying to do a Hogswatch card, but he's misunderstood how it works. And there's also the wizards. They start talking about the mundane, crappy stuff at Hogswatch. You know, they're arguing with relatives. Some idiot puts on the hat and makes everyone read out their jokes. And Ridcull is appalled by this because he is the guy that puts on the hat and reads out jokes and wants to play the silly games.
Yeah.
But there's also the fact that, again, going to social economic stuff, the dean mentions having a pillowcase, and one of the other factors like, we all put stockings out, and some people have pillowcases.
Yes.
And it's just this idea that they've obviously they're both senior wizards and therefore in incredibly lavish and luxurious and full of food environment, but some of them have obviously come from different backgrounds, and the idea that which would have been fine if the dean did not suddenly go, well, I'm sorry, my family had class, and then it became a whole thing.
Yeah,
but again, it's a book about British stuff, so class.
So you've got all of that, but as we mentioned earlier about death. Conversation with Susan about
why the sun won't rise with the Hogfather, because she says, would the sun really not have risen? He's like, yeah. She's like, what would have happened? He's like, a ball of light would have come over the horizon. She's like, what?
So again, it comes into, I like to think about it as about belief still. It's about believing in the stories. I know what we should do. Do you want to be Susan and I'll be Death?
Okay. So we're now going to do a little performance.
Yes.
So Susan says, trickery of words. I would have thought that you'd been a bit more literal-minded than that.
I am nothing if not literal-minded. Trickery with words is where humans live.
All right. I'm not stupid. You're saying that humans need fantasies to make life bearable?
Really? As if it was some kind of pink pill. No. Humans need fantasy to be human. To be the place where the falling angel meets the rising ape.
Tooth fairies? Hogfathers? Little...
As practice. You have to start out learning to believe the little lies.
So we can believe the big ones?
Yes. Justice, mercy, duty, that sort of thing.
They're not the same at all.
You think so? Then take the universe and grind it down to the finest powder and sieve it through the finest sieve, and then show me one atom of justice, one molecule of mercy. And yet you act as if there is some ideal order in the world, as if there is some rightness in the universe by which it may be judged.
Yes, but people have got to believe that, or what's the point?
My point exactly. There is a place where two galaxies have been colliding for 1 million years. Don't try to tell me that that's right.
Yes, but people don't think about that.
Correct. Stars explode. Worlds collide. There's hardly anywhere in the universe where humans can live without being frozen or fried. And yet you believe that a bed is a normal thing. It is the most amazing talent.
Talent?
Oh yes, a very special kind of stupidity. You think the whole universe is inside your heads.
You make us sound mad.
No, you need to believe in things that aren't true. How else can they become? So yes, I think that's a huge part of this book.
I mean, this is a bit that gets quoted a lot, not even in the context of this is the Hogfather book, but in the context of this is Discworld, this is Pratchett. And again, Mark Burroughs used it. And again, it's the idea of not just story, but fantasy being so important. And Pratchett was very big on the power of stories, that they define us, that they're part of what makes humans what they are.
Yeah. And I think it's worked so well in this book. You know, I think it's a great quote, and I think it sums up the book as a whole.
And again, it goes back to that kind of mythic dawn of time stuff. You know, the stories are the things that carry through even as they change.
Yeah.
Which, again, is the kind of stuff I absolutely love.
Right. What else do we have on our notes? I think we're coming to the end of our...
I feel like I do need to point out the other quote that Mark Burroughs used, because it is also from this book. Again, to show the range of Pratchett. When the wizards talk about hangover cures, and one of them mentions using willow bark, which I think is the stuff that preceded stuff like paracetamol. And one of the wizards goes, oh, it's an analgesic, you know. And Rukin goes, yes, but it's probably best to give it to him by mouth. And
again, that really works. Really, it's one of those.
It's one of the jokes you didn't get when you read it as a teenager,
but also works really a lot better with words when you can kind of
see how analgesic is spelled.
Yes,
it just means painkiller. It just means painkiller.
But you know, it's.
But as soon as someone says maybe give it to him by mouth, you're like, I see it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
again, you've got these slightly these terrible puns that are occasionally slightly mucky, and then
I think this is the
rising angel and the falling angel.
You've
the falling angel and the rising angel.
But you've got the entire book. You've got the Death being the Hogfather, giving out ridiculous presents to people, making the sleigh go by shouting applesauce at the pigs because you couldn't get them to fly.
Couldn't get them to go.
And bad jokes there about Willowbark, and then you've got the profound stuff about belief and fantasies, and all of that. And it's
story in that being what makes us human.
Yeah, and it's just I think it's got I would find it difficult to suggest people read this as a standalone if they've not read any other Pratchett, because I think there's. I mean,
even Mark Burroughs uses both those quotes, does suggest Mort as a starter.
Yes,
which I guess means if you're reading that sub-series, you get to this one quite fast.
Yeah, but I think if you've got a basic knowledge and interest in Discworld,
it's a good early one. I think.
Yeah, I think definitely this is one.
And plenty of people,
unmissable one.
Plenty of people read it every December.
Yes.
Even if they're not reading the rest of it, it's like, well, it's December. I'm going to read Hogfather now. You got the death part. You've got the wizards part. Those actually quite often go together. Sort of.
Yeah, you find a lot of wizards in bits.
Now, 3 of the books have had a very strong wizard part of it in the death part of it.
But later on, they kind of more with the Rincewind books. But I think in this they are supernaturally people. So.
Well. Kind of institutional, supernatural in Ankh-Morpork. But you've got other bits of it, you've got that bit with Nobby and Constable Washpot being called in, but I think there's the main bits are very Ankh-Morporky. Although again, the fact the Assassin's Guild,
Canting Crew.
Yeah, so again, you've got that. I suppose you've got that sense of Ankh-Morpork, kind of the street life and the institutions, and this is the whole thing. It becomes so much a place because there's all this. These bits that can just crop up. You're like, oh, it's those guys. Yeah. Even if it's not a book about those guys.
No, they can be. Those guys. You can throw them in as a
because they're all in the same city. They're all in the same.
Yeah,
place.
And it doesn't feel out of place for them to just turn up.
And it's kind of like how sitters work. There's some people you walk around, you sort of say, oh, that's the person I see at the bus stop. Yeah. Oh, that's the lady I see walking up the road. It's just that sense of having not even acquaintances, but people who are sort of familiar to you about the place.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we shall wrap it up there. So if you hadn't gathered already, we liked this one. You should go and read it if you haven't already. Otherwise, you're listening to this if you haven't already read it. Well, don't answer that one.
I mean, if you do read it, probably wait for when it's chilly.
I mean, yes, don't read it in June when we're going through a heat wave. It certainly is slightly odd.
Were you reading it at midsummer?
Pretty much, yeah.
So entirely the wrong end of the year. So happy Hogswatch, all those in the southern hemisphere. And however your winter looks. But there we go.
So yes, go read it, go enjoy. So next time we will be doing
Quadrant 2, halfway through.
Yes, because as I said, this is book 20. So we're going to be looking back over the last quarter, but as well, a bit
maybe
of
halfway.
Just a bit of a whole range. Again, what we're looking forward to. But if you'd like to, send us some feedback. There was something at the start of the episode. With the magic of editing, there was something at the start of the episode about how you can get in touch and interact with us.
Although when you're listening to this, it's only in 1 month's time, so.
Don't hesitate. Get in there quick.
Unless it's after October 2025, when people also might be listening to it, because that's how podcasts work. Do we want to rethink this section?
No. Okay. Where we am. Anyway,
that'll be the next episode.
Yes.
We'll see if anyone sends anything.
And with that, I'm going to say good night to you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Dining Table Discworld. You can find us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Dining Table Discworld. You can also find us on BlueSky at dtdiscworld. All our other contact information and credits for our music can be found in our show notes. Thank you for listening again, and we'll see you in our next episode.